Craig, I want to turn to your style of swimming. I got to see your first NCAA championship in 200 fly when you beat Parr, and it was a great race. And you swam beautifully. And you're quoted as swimming like really effortlessly through the water. You weren't a big, strong guy. You just knew how to hold the water and move through the water. Um, and I see it when you swim. We've had a number of flyers on the show. We've had Mike Cavick, Tom Shields, Deirdre Gagnon, Mike Bottom, Brian. We've had a lot of world-class flyers, and a lot of them they all swim differently, and they talk about their strokes differently. What swimmers out there do you see swimming in like, oh, that's just a beautiful butterfly? Because when a beautiful butterfly is swum, it's just gorgeous. What do you see yourself in other swimmers currently right now? Any young ones, or what have you admired? Michaels, did you see, Dewey's? Talk about that.
Well, I mean, we talk about Michael. Was it 2000 was his first Olympics, and I was at trials, and I'll never forget this. I was standing on the pool deck next to Eddie Reese and Randy Reese, my coach, and they were. I don't know how I got on the deck. They let me on the deck, and I was sitting there, and we were watching Michael's 200 fly, and Eddie Reese turned around to me and said, "Watch this kid. He's going to be a great one." I'll never forget that. He said this in 2000. He's going to be a great one, and I thought that was really cool. And I swim. I don't know. We all have our own way of swimming, right? I was very much, my stroke was very much driven by my hips and my leg strength. I don't have that upper body strength like some other people have, so I had to really think about my rhythm more than anyone. And I have no natural speed. I know, Brian, I know you were the first one that broke 23, right? We fly, and I couldn't even do that in a 30-meter fly, right? The way I swam fly was like, even my 100 fly, the first couple, like off my dive, the first couple strokes was all about getting into my rhythm and then building off of that. Like some people just have that explosive speed like you and could just go right away, but I could never do that. So if I think of, I don't really know all the names. I mean, I watch like that Christoph, who obviously has the world record, there's why am I blanking on the young man, Luca?
Orlando.
Yeah, Orlando. I mean, they're just so many gifted natural flyers, and the funny thing is, I think when you swim a lot, you can look at somebody and just see right away, do they have a natural ability to float and swim, a natural feel, right? That's like if somebody said, "Watch my stroke," it doesn't take you 10 minutes to see if they're good swim. You can see right away in the first 25, like, yeah, no, they need pick another sport, right, or whatever. But I look for butterflies who just, for rhythm, I mean, it's all about feel. Like, I do watch Caleb, I talk to Caleb still, I'm a big fan of his, and he's the nicest kid in the world. And, and even with those incredible breakouts and everything else, it's still, he's not rushing his stroke. It's about feel. And for me, it was always about feel. It was always about finishing through, and just I think at the end of my career, I started to try to muscle it more, and I actually saw video. There's not a whole lot of video back then, right? We weren't filming practices or anything, so you just had to hopefully get lucky that somebody got some film of you. And I just noticed what I started doing was, early in my swimming, I had a lot more up and down. Then I started to drive forward, and I was a great believer of like just pushing my chin along the surface of the water. And I know Michael does that, and he talks about that too. But what started happening with me was I started getting too flats, right? So there's always a trade-off. And I think it got to the point where it became difficult for me to correct that. And so, but I think that like that's why you need good coaches, right? And you need people to always monitor what you're doing, and so the little things like in freestyle, I was part of that whole, I don't call it a fad, but that big change when we started doing, alternate side breathing, right? I used to breathe to the left all the time, and I was okay distance swimmer, I went a 9:01 in a dual meet in 1,000.
Whoa.
And so I would have liked to have gone under 9 minutes, but we just never swam 1,000. And I used to breathe to the left. And then we started doing this alternate side breathing because it was supposed to rotate your shoulders. But really what it did is it just flattened me out. And the other thing was, and I realized watching some of the newer swimmers later on that I personally was a real oxygen breather. Like I needed oxygen. And I realized breathing every third, I was always in oxygen debt, right? And that's why I found it amazing how like Michael would breathe every stroke, right?
Right.
Other people, and I always kind of wondered, besides all the mechanics, what that does, we just didn't think of that. I didn't even think about that, right? But you got to find what works for you. Like, Mel Stewart, who would have thought, right? The guy, was a side breather. Everyone used to say, no, don't do that. And then, he became one of the greatest swimmers ever, right? So it worked for him, right? So getting back to your point, Luke, is, everybody, you just got to find, it's like walking, right? Everybody walks the same way, like, left foot, right foot, the mechanics are the same, but everybody's walk and cadence and stride is different, right? And you got to find out what is your natural rhythm, right? And that to me is like, you just got to play around with it, right? Breathe every stroke, breathe every other stroke, breathe every third, shorten up your stroke. Do that. I mean, you're not going to know until you actually play around with it.